Thank you to all of you. It is a great honor for me to come this morning and to speak before this great representation of the worldwide new generations. Colombia, my country, had suffered violence for more than 80 years. No generation, mine, nor the older generations, had come to the streets to protest against terrorism. The new generations, led by people as Oscar Morales, gave us an extraordinary example. They went to the streets for the first time, and they had the power to convene, to call 12 million Colombians to go after them. And that day was very important for my country. I consider that day as a landmark, as a tipping point for my country to be conscious that we can defeat terrorism, that we can live in a pluralistic democracy without violence. For I have come here. For great consideration I have for the leadership of young people as Oscar Morales. Oscar, thank you again. Latin America and the Caribbean is a very important region. We have there almost 600 million people. But the most important element is the average age. Very young people, 28 years old. And of course, we are full of resources. For instance, this region has 10% of the world oil reserves, 6% of the natural gas world reserves. We have all the possibilities for biofuels without limiting food security and without cutting the jungle down. My country is an Amazon country. We still have 53% of our territory in rainforest, and our main contribution to the world policy against the climate change is to preserve our jungle. But we are full of terrain with all the possibilities to expand food security and to expand biofuels without cutting the jungle down. Brazil is the first producer of ethanol from sugarcane, and Colombia in the region is the second one. And we have all the possibilities with coal, with eolic energy, with solar energy, with thermal energy. What is the reason for me to mention this? For the year 2030, 18 years from now, what is a very long time for my generation, but very short time for you, dear youngsters. 18 years from now, the world will need 40% increase in energy supply. And our region has enormous possibilities and, of course, enormous challenges. By the same year, the world will need 50% increase in food supply. Our region has 26% of the fertile land in the planet. Of course, we have to increase food production. Argentina, with 30 million hectares of fertile topsoil, has the possibility to double the current production. Last year, Argentina produced 100 million tons of grains. By the year 2030, Argentina can double its production. Brazil the same. Brazil could pass from 170 million tons to more than 300 million tons. And my country could pass from 30 to 60. And our challenge is because we need to increase food production. At the same time, we need to understand how to overcome the decrease in productivity because of the climate change. And the third challenge for our region is to be the best helpful region in the world to attain the new requirements of potable water. By the year 2030, The supply of potable water has to increase by 30%. And in the region, we have 50% of the worldwide soft water. We have the Amazon River. We have the Orinoco River. And at the same time, we have 20% of the worldwide biodiversity. Alone in the Amazon, there is a great secret of biodiversity. Therefore, we need to know how to preserve our natural resources and how, in the most sustainable way, to contribute for the world's new needs. But of course, the main element for us is that our people are very young. Youngsters are the driving force for our region to be able to meet these worldwide requirements for the year 2030. Of course, we have many problems. Insecurity. There are countries such as Mexico and Colombia with the courage of having disclosed all problems of violence. The outgoing president of Mexico, President Calderon, has proceeded with all the courage. He has confronted narco-terrorism, and in my opinion, what we should ask for is what should have happened with Mexico in the absence of President Calderon's determination to fight narco-terrorism. There are other countries in the region. There are other countries in the regions that dismiss these problems, such as the case of Venezuela. And the president of Venezuela says that once socialism wins in the region, there will be no longer violence. I disagree. It was the excuse in my country. For 40 years I heard from the narco-terrorists in my country that once they win with their communist ideas, the country will overcome poverty, overcome violence. And what we saw was the opposite. More violence, less investment, more unemployment, more poverty, more unequal opportunities, and more violence, a vicious circle. Therefore, when we speak about violence, about security, we need to understand the role of the youngsters. The main perpetrators are youngsters, and they are the main victims. Therefore, we need to understand how are we going to work with the youngsters to create security, peace in our region. I have a great admiration for the young people in my country. My generation and the older generations have been very permissive, very relaxed regarding violence. You, the young in my country, have been much more determined to require from the government to defeat violence and to give the youngsters opportunities different than being recruited by terrorist groups. My government work with three elements. Very strong policy against the gangsters, the kingpins. Generous policies to call the youngsters to come back from the terrorist groups, to demobilize from them, to be reinserted to the constitutional life without impunity, and at the same time, social solutions for the poorest people, for the youngsters of the poorest families, not to be in the need of being recruited by terrorist groups. I call your attention to think, how can Latin American countries eliminate violence, given that the main victim and the main perpetrator is the new generation? The second element I see for our democracies in the region is the freedom of private initiative. Of course, we need to make it inclusive, and the only way is through the participation of the young generations. In my opinion, there should be a joint action between governments, the private sectors, the youngsters, the civil society, to understand this. Latin American countries at this moment have a prosperous economies. However, there is a growing unemployment for the youngsters. This rate is in between 18 and 21. Remember this. In the year 2007, in Spain, the lack of jobs for the youngsters was in between 18 and 21 in the year 2007. Today it is over 54. In the year 2007, no one in Spain thought that it was possible to have this enormous growth of unemployment for the youngsters. For I called attention in the Latin American countries for us to place much more emphasis on how to prevent this problem. And the only way is by coordinated with the youngster. How can we promote their creativity? How can we enable them for them to start enterprises, social, innovative solutions? In my opinion, if we call the private sector and we say to the private sector, we need venture capital funds to promote enterprises started by youngsters, the private sector will say, we cannot put this money at risk, for we need a joint action between the private and the public sector. The public sector should fund these projects and at the same time agree with the private sector for the private sector to handle how to allocate these funds. In my country, we planted excellent seeds to promote entrepreneurial initiatives in the youngsters. It is very important to understand that the main problem for the social cohesion in our region is to attend the expectation of the youngsters: education, social security, possibilities for them to participate in politics, not only to have possibilities of being elected, but much more important, for them to discuss with the top leaders of our countries what are the right policies for our countries to overcome young people problems. One of the main solutions we need is to promote creativity, and it needs education for those under 5. We are very lacking in the region, even now, with coverage for this sector, the population. At the same time, we need vocational training, university opportunities, lifetime possibilities for people to be updated, education, and at the same time, resources. And when we speak about creativity, we do not also speak about enterprises. We speak also about social initiatives to promote the artistic talent. The artistic talent is a great source for creativity and for overcoming the crucial problems affecting our people. Of course, when we speak about democratic values, we need to understand that every country of the rule of law needs to preserve the independence of the institutions. The voice of the youngsters is very important for them to demand for the governments to respect the independence of institutions. We have seen in Venezuela, in Ecuador, in some degree in Argentina, and in Nicaragua, problems of governments affecting the independence of institutions. I buy the youngsters because my only hope is the voice of the youngsters, for them to raise their protest and for them to require from the governments the respect to the independence of the institutions. This is the only way for people to trust in the rule of law. And while 10 years ago, the government of Venezuela had only 3 media, today this government owns 57 elements of the media. There is a growing monopoly of the governmental media, and at the same time, a reciprocal decrease in independent media. 4, we need the voice of the youngsters to require from every government the respect to independent media. This is the only way. This is the only way for us to having pluralistic people participation. Oscar, thank you very much. You are a great example. But you did a very good job in the year 2008. Now with the encouragement of your colleagues, Colombia and Latin American countries need many more Oscars like you, because the fight is not a question of one single day. The fight needs to be fought every day. We still have 13 minutes. Therefore, I invite you for any question. Please, whoever wants to ask me a question about whatever topic, my only favor, I beg, is to speak to me slowly. Thank you.
What's this?
Take questions.
Okay, so let's do, we've probably got time for 2 from each mic. If you would introduce yourself, and the shorter the questions, the more we can hear from President Uribe.
Good morning. My name is Ollana Goni. I'm from Venezuela, but unfortunately, I'm living now in Italy because, unfortunately, my country it's not a safe place to live. So first of all, let me thank you for your great speech.
Slowly, please.
She's from Venezuela, living in Italy.
So thank you for all the wonderful things you are doing and for the inspiring speech that you have given us. And the world needs more leaders like you, because in politics we have lost faith, and we need more people like you to guide us. So since I'm not longer able to live in my country, I want to ask you, what do you recommend me that all the Venezuelans, which is the vast majority from my generation, what do you recommend us to do from the outside to bring change in the inside in a country where bureaucracy and tyranny and uneducation and mainly corruption is so down to like every single sector in our country? Thank you.
May I gather some questions?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Well, let's do that. Let's go around, 1 question from each mic.
I am writing down your questions.
But keep them quick.
Yes, hello, Mr. President. I too am from Venezuela. You mentioned that the youngsters from our country are the real victims of the governments that we've had for the past couple of decades. As a young member of my society and of Venezuela, I've clearly been affected, just like the rest of my generation, by Hugo Chávez's government. He has destroyed the country's economy. He has destroyed the hopes of a generation that has the potential to achieve greatness. And just like the girl that just spoke, I also had to leave my country, escaping the insecurities and all the issues that are currently affecting my country. So like her, I would like to ask you, what are the actions that you suggest we take? What are the actions that you recommend we take in order to
Great
get
question. I
rid
think
of
it's
this dictator?
very similar to the first question. Great question. Next microphone, please.
Hi, my name is Nina Hensterling. I'm from New York. I hate speaking in microphones, but my new motto for 2013 is to be
Slowly,
brave,
Mina,
so,
please.
que mi nueva cosa es ser más valiente y no me gusta hablar mucho en micrófono, pero quiero ser valiente, así que mucho gusto, muy bueno tenerte aquí. My question is about the role of agriculture in developing countries, and what place does development with agriculture take in an era when social business is the popular way to develop? Agriculture has very different challenges that it faces. Not every small agriculturalist can start their own business. So is there or start selling on their own? It's a much more collaborative effort that is needed. And is there a collaborative model that is best suited given certain political economic circumstances?
Thank you. And final microphone question.
Hi, my name is Justin. I'm from Zimbabwe. I'm curious about two things. First of all, how can we as the youth put an end to the corruption that is so widespread, particularly in our country? Zimbabwe is ruled by corruption and it's destroying everyone's opportunities. And secondly, what can other countries, such as within South America, do to help liberate that country and drive out the change that has to happen and is so desperately needed? Thank you.
Great. President Uribe, do you want to answer those four, and then we'll take another four from the floor?
Venezuela. I consider that the performance of the opposition in the presidential election that took place 3 weeks ago was an excellent performance. There is a reason for you to continue fighting. My first answer is, please continue your fight. Second, consider that you have done very well. Your young candidate did very, very well. He fought the Chavez model, but he was very generous with the Chavez followers. He said to them, you are not guilty. The only one guilty is the top leader of these new communists. Therefore, you should continue inviting the poorest people who are the main sector of Chavez followers for them to work with you. And at the same time, and it is my third suggestion, you should say to them, we agree that we need to overcome poverty in this country, but at the same time, although we have oil, the only way for us to make sustainable the social policies is by promoting the private creativity. And every communist has defeated private creativity. Continue fighting in Venezuela is my recommendation. New York, small agriculturists, what should be the social solution for them? First, every agriculture, whatever the size, should take into consideration first, the world will need 50% of increase in food supply by the year 2030. Second, at the same time, the climate change affects productivity, and it could reach a limitation of productivity in between 20 and 25%. Therefore, the first solution problem, the first social solution, is to work closely with universities and with governments and with research institutions to figure out how to overcome that limitation in productivity. And for having better market access, it is necessary the integration among all the small producers. Zimbabwe, corruption. 3 weeks ago, my country inaugurated in our capital city a beautiful new airport. We could say today with pride that it is the state-of-the-art airport in the region, a beautiful new airport. When you arrive in Bogota, and because I have come here to visit you, you are in the duty to visit my country. And once And once you go there, you are going to see this beautiful airport. My government assigned the contract in public bid. And I said, the main way to defeat corruption is by opening ways for people participation. Do you know how we assign this contract? We called all the bidders to a public hearing, and we conducted this public hearing on live TV. And all of them discussed about their own bids and about their competitor bids. And it was a clear discussion. And at the moment we assigned the contract with the supervision of all Colombians, the contract was assigned with all the transparency. To my friend of Zimbabwe, the best way to eliminate corruption is to open ways for people to supervise all the deals of the government. And the main driving force to introduce this in every society is the fight of the youngsters, demanding from governments to open ways for community participation. You are asking me about Latin American countries with what you can undertake joint actions. My answer is, please do not think in countries. Think in the new generations. Look for your colleagues in Colombia, in Brazil, in Mexico, in Chile, in Argentina. Look for the youngsters. Visit Latin American countries and invite delegations of our countries to visit Zimbabwe and fight for the same interests of the new generations wherever in the world.
One more question from each microphone, but please just ask the question as fast as possible.
David, we're going to do 2 questions here very quickly, okay? One.
Very quickly, but slowly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, my name is Isabel. I'm from Spain, and I have a question for Oscar and you. How do you manage to balance the fight against terrorism with the fact that sometimes you have to make some concessions or talking with terrorists? So how do you balance that? Please come to Spain and explain our leaders too.
Next question quickly.
My name is Blaise. I'm delegate from Cameroon. President Uribe, you mentioned that your country and other countries in Latin America would increase their food production. My question to you is the problem of world hunger that we have little food, or is it a problem of waste?
Can we read the problem of?
Is it having little food, or is it too much waste? Waste or
too much waste?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Next, one question from that microphone.
I'm David from Honduras, and I just want to say that thank you for all the support that you, President Uribe, are doing to Honduras. You know, today, 20 people are going to die in Honduras because of violence, just today. And tomorrow, 20 other people are going to die because of violence. And 12 of those people are young people. So what we should do to stop this situation as Bogota did?
Thank you. Good question. Next question.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Meron from Eritrea. My question is on human rights. I'm from a country where youth are forced to join an army and have no say in the country's development. And it's a matter of existence at the moment. We have nearly 4,000 people leaving every month. That's like 500,000 over the past 10 decades. Now, from your experience on leadership and governance, what do you think we could do to overcome oppression in a country where fear of citizens and life threat plays a greater role? Thank you.
Thank you. And final question.
Hi.
You told me that there will be 2 more, and now we are going to complete 5.
It doesn't matter. It's that woman in the blue top.
My concern is not because of the question, but because I speak very slowly, and I don't know how to shorten my answers.
I will be slow. I'm nervous, so don't worry. I'm Diego from Mexico, and my question is, I admire as well my president. I think it's very brave what he did, but I'm not sure it was the right thing, or something I think was lacking, because I don't think it's sustainable to just go with violence and something is missing. Right now, he's leaving the country, 60,000 people or more died innocent people, and now what? So my question to you is, what did we miss? Did we miss collaboration with the US, or what was, because now the next president will do a completely different strategy.
Great, thank you. President Uribe.
First, Spain. Spain has undertaken many initiatives to negotiate with terrorist groups. However, these negotiations have always failed. But I congratulate the people of Spain for their courage. You have been able, you are going to be able to overcome all the current problems without negotiating with terrorist groups. Remember that when President Sarkozy in France made the decision for no longer to admit the presence of Spaniard terrorists within the territory of France, the people of ETA, the Spaniard terrorist group, made the decision of ceasing criminal activities. Therefore, please continue your fight. Second, Cameroon. There should be a considerable amount of waste foods because of the lack of logistics, of infrastructure, because of the lack of roads, railways, refrigerators, etc. But every country is doing the best to overcome the limitations, even with the limitation included, that we recognize the necessity to overcome the limitations. Keep in mind, it is necessary to increase food production by 50%. And I recommend you to go and to read the World Organization for Food of the United Nations reports. This organization is very clear in its reports about the need for food. Honduras, violence. Some recommendation to my friends in Honduras. First, remember the new government that many people in the world supported. The current president fight for Honduras to return to democracy, to the rule of law. But many of us are concerned because of the risks of reverse in Honduras. Second, I could speak to you in depth about our many policies to rescue security in my country. Of course, at the National Defense University in DC, we have taught a seminar on 38 policies to rescue security. But today is not the right day to go in depth about this. Only one recommendation that meets one of the main policies, people participation. You need to complain every day. You need to call many youngsters, many people in Honduras, for them to go to the streets and to demonstrate against violence. And you, the young generation, you are specialized, you are very effective in calling people through the social networks. Resort in Honduras to the social networks to require the cease of violence. Human rights. During our administration, we suffered human rights violations. What we did? We never hid the problems. We placed the problems on the table. And I remember that we held many public hearings on public TV to listen to the complaints from the communities. We attended this meeting with the presence of the Minister of Defense, the Chief of the Police, the attorneys, the General Prosecutors, and myself as President. We put our face before the communities. and we are the communities, please be confident. Tell us what have been the violations of human rights. And in every case, it was a fair complaint. We impose all the sanctions. Mexico, the way. President Calderon lost the recent presidential elections, but he has won the necessity of his policies. The incoming president, Enrique Peña Nieto, has stated repeatedly that he will defeat narco-terrorists in Mexico. I recommend you 3 policies. First, to keep with all the determination to fight narco-trafficking. Second, to invite young people who are in these criminal organizations to demobilize. Please offer them possibilities for them to go to schools, for them to have readaptation to the civil society, for them to have possibilities to undertake small enterprises. Invite them for demobilization generously, but without impunity. It is necessary to establish the difference between demobilizations and impunity. We need a balance between peace and justice. Of course, it is possible to shorten sentences, but it is very dangerous to grant impunity. And third, advance in social policies to give a clear hint to the young generations that they are full of opportunities and that they do not need to be recruited by narco-traffickers in Mexico. Of course, you have political problems and problems that depend on the United States solutions. I mentioned 2, and I finish with this. In Mexico, you have more than 2,000 police bodies. Every mayor, every governor has his own police body. And it is very difficult for the president to coordinate all these police bodies in the fight against narco-terrorism. It is very important to figure out a political solution. How can the president coordinate all the police bodies in the fight against narco-trafficking? And one second comment, and my last comment. The United States, and I say this with all the respect, should understand that in our countries, Mexico, Honduras, Colombia, we need this country not to sell assault weapons to civilians. The president President, thank you. You are very generous. I am accustomed more to criticism than to applauses. President Calderon had announced that during the last 24 months, the Mexican police has seized more than 100,000 assault weapons legally sold to civilians in bordering USA cities. And these assault weapons have been sold here in the States in accordance with the legal framework, but they have passed to the hands of Mexican criminals. Therefore, it is necessary to solve this problem. Thank you very much. My question, who of you haven't gone to Colombia yet? Raise your hands. Who of you have already gone to Colombia? Who of you are going to visit Colombia in the coming month? No, quite few. I need more hands, please. For second time, I repeat my question. Who or you are going to visit Colombia? Not in the coming month, in the coming years. Please, Oscar will tell me, and I will invite you to drink a cup of coffee in my house. Thank you very much.